Hello and welcome to the Bureau Podcast. I'm Matt Cowan, the Bureau Chief and your host. Thank you for joining me. Well, if you've been following my social media and watching my videos on YouTube, you can watch and subscribe at the Bureau Asia, by the way, then you'll know that I'm fresh off a 3-week trip to the Philippines. Actually, to be more precise, a 3-week trip to Manila. So in actual fact, I got to visit just one of the 7,640 islands. So please take the information you're about to hear with a grain of salt. But at the same time, I hope you'll give it some thought if indeed you're thinking about visiting the Philippines anytime soon. Or you just simply have an interest in the country and want to find out more about it. I like to think that what we're about to cover in this episode is pretty informative and hopefully entertaining and reasonably accurate. So yes, that's right. I spent a whole 3 weeks in the Philippine capital, which gave me quite a bit of time to get a feel for the city post-pandemic and to see how it's changed, if at all, since my last visit back in 2019, I think it was. I've been at least half a dozen times, I think, so I reckon I have the street cred to look at things fairly objectively. As a result of my trip, I've come up with a list of 5 things that, well, kind of bugged me while I was in Manila this time round. But before we get into it, I want to welcome the Bureau's content manager, Melanie Kasul, to the episode. She, of course, came along with me on the trip. How are you, Mel?
I don't think you had any choice.
I didn't actually.
We stayed at my house.
I think it was all booked and sorted before I could even make a decision.
Mabuhay! Xin chao, kong hei fa choi, chuk mong namoy, Happy New Year! Whew, I just had to.
I think you've covered just
I've
about
covered
everyone
about
there.
it.
I want you to say the Chinese one again.
Gong hei fa choi.
Oh, okay.
I think some people say gong hei fa che, gong hei
not
fa
sure.
choi. Yeah.
Not sure.
But yep, Happy New Year to everyone listening. And yeah, Manila. But technically, we stayed in Las Piñas, which is a suburb outside of Manila.
Well, it's a city.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's a city now, isn't it?
Yeah,
It used to be a municipality.
That's
if that's
right.
the right word.
Las Piñas is where we were. That was our home base. And we also visited Cavite and Quezon Province. And we did not succumb to the trend of going to BGC.
Yeah, what is that again? What is BGC?
Bonifacio Global City.
Okay, and so it's like a city like Las Piñas?
No, I think they just call it like city, just like a name. It's like a brand name.
Okay,
I think so.
All right. So it's pretty high end and
Yeah, because BGC is actually inside Makati and Taguig, which are like 2 different cities.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you feel refreshed and re-energized after the trip?
Yes,
Yeah?
and fat.
No comment. Okay, so before we get stuck into our It's Not Always Fun in the Philippines list, Mel, I wanted to give our listeners who aren't that familiar with Manila some facts about it.
Including me. Yeah. Geography is definitely not my favorite subject. And the naming of municipalities, cities, provinces, has changed in the last 10 years since I've been living abroad, and definitely a lot of stats. Okay, hit us.
Okay, so firstly, let's get our terms of reference right because I've been in the habit of using the word Manila as a catch-all word to refer to what you might call Greater Manila. But it turns out that that's not right. In fact, the city of Manila is one of 16 cities that make up the National Capital Region, or NCR as it's commonly known.
Yeah, back in the day, we knew what NCR was, but we were just used to putting down MM or Metro Manila on our addresses.
Oh, right. So NCR isn't that new. It's not such a new... Oh,
it's been there. Yeah,
right.
but we were... Yeah, like I said, I don't know what's been happening in the last 10 years.
Right, okay. Now, this region, known as NCR, as we've been talking about, encompasses something like 620 square kilometres or 240 miles and has a population of around 13.5 million people.
Woo.
As I mentioned, 16 cities make up the region, including your home city, Mel, Las Piñas.
Yep, we are in the 4th district of NCR.
And NCR is the most populous urban area in the world. Now, Quezon City, part of NCR and just next door to the city of Manila in the north, is the most populated city, while the city of Manila is both the capital of the Philippines and the most densely populated.
How dense?
Well, they haven't done a survey on the people there yet. Now, just so you can get a handle on the extent of Manila's humanity, that's the city of Manila, remember, I want to give you some figures. Based on the 2020 census, the city of Manila has a population of approximately 1.85 million people in an area of just 42 square kilometres, with a population density of 44,000 people per square kilometre.
Oh my gosh.
Or 110,000 people per square mile. Now, to give you some kind of comparison, I looked at the population figures of the city we live in here, Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam, Vietnam's biggest city. So I decided to compare NCR and Ho Chi Minh City. So remember, NCR is, what would you call it? A collection of 16 cities. Now, it didn't make sense to compare the city of Manila with Ho Chi Minh City because Ho Chi Minh City is divided up differently.
Yeah, districts, right?
Yeah, that's right. And covers over 2,000 square kilometres compared to just 42 square kilometres or something like that for the city of Manila. So let's have a quick look at NCR and Ho Chi Minh City. Remember, as I said, NCR is made up of 16 cities. Now, if you thought Ho Chi Minh City was densely populated, then check this out. NCR covers just 636 square kilometres and has a population of around 13.5 million people. Whereas, as I just mentioned, Ho Chi Minh City covers just over 2,000 square kilometres and has a population of around 9 million people, give or take, depending on reports.
Oh my gosh.
But get this, Ho Chi Minh City's population density is around 4,300 people per square kilometre or 11,120 per square mile. However, NCR's population density is an astonishing 21,000 people per square kilometre
That's crazy.
or 55,000 per square mile. That's around 5 times more dense than Ho Chi Minh City.
Oh, wow. And that doesn't mention the density of cars, like vehicles.
Oh, yeah, no.
And buildings.
This is just people living in this particular
standing
space.
next to each other.
Yeah, it's astonishing. And I think it goes a long way to explaining some of the points we're going to talk about in this episode.
Yep, it's not all fun in the Philippines. Here we go.
Okay, so let's talk about the traffic. I noticed this time that the traffic seemed worse than ever before and it dominated
Manileño.
I wanted to say Manilans, but Manileño discussions and the news wherever we went.
And social media.
Yeah, that's right. And it definitely did seem worse than before.
Well, to be fair, though, we did travel at the peak of the Christmas season. So, yeah, but it is true that it takes the average suburb denizen like me to commute into the central business districts of Manila or Makati and Quezon City at least 2 hours one way.
Yeah, and it's
2 hours one way.
Yeah, it's crazy. And we're talking about, say, from Las Piñas to the city of Manila. So let's say you're going into BGC or Makati, 16 kilometres. We're talking nearly 2 hours of traffic, of commuting time, which is mental. Also, when taking road trips, we went to a place called Villa Escudero in Quezon Province, not to be confused with Quezon City, which from memory is just 40 kilometres or so from Las Piñas.
Yep, and we even took the highway in the south.
Yeah.
Yeah. Expressway.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that expressway? They should work on a name change, I think. On the way back, so on the way there, it wasn't too bad. I think
we woke up early though.
Yeah, we got there on the road early. I think we were on the road about 6:30 or something like that. On the way back, it took us over 4 hours.
I think 5.
Did it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I'd passed out by then or whatever. I was numbed. I think I calculated at the time that we moved on average about 10 kilometres an hour on the motorway.
That is crazy.
And also worked out that a marathoner would have beaten us home provided they weren't run over by a jeepney in the bicycle lane.
Yeah, well, the main issue, I think, is that, the roads are too narrow. there has been a lot of development, new housing, buildings, and of course, people are able to buy their own cars now. There's more trucks to facilitate public commuters, but those lanes are just two-way lanes.
Yeah, well, to say there are infrastructure issues would be an understatement. There isn't really a rail system to speak of, although there is a metro, but there are only 4 lines, I think, which doesn't nearly cover enough of the city, and I've never ridden it.
But you've ridden a jeepney underneath it.
Yeah.
That's close enough.
Yeah. So the public transport options for getting around are trikes, jeepneys, buses and taxis.
Oh, and the app rides, or there's this weird name that I put it.
Oh, yeah, I've forgotten it. It's like Grab, right?
Yeah. Angkas, I think. Yep.
What does Angkas mean?
Angkas means that you're like on somebody's back, like piggybacking. Piggybacking.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool. It's like Om. It's like Xe Om.
Yeah, like
I guess. Okay,
exactly.
in Vietnamese. Anyway, if you'd like to know more about jeepneys and trikes, check out my YouTube channel. I did a couple of short videos about them and they've had some good views, Mel. Not bad for me anyway.
Very good.
Yeah.
Look, if you guys are traveling to Manila, skip the taxis. They are dodgy as hell. They always make excuses that their meters don't work and they try to con you into, like a fixed price that's like 110%.
Oh, never heard of that before.
Oh,
Is that a new strategy?
Well, yeah. Higher than the real cost of your fare, obviously. Ride-hailing apps are a hit and miss, especially for pickups inside gated communities where we were.
Right.
So they don't really do door-to-door. And, I think I've been spoiled in Vietnam. Everywhere you have Grab,
I drive you
Gojek.
around a lot.
Yeah. I don't even need an app for you. I just roll over in the bed and go, let's go.
A kick.
Yeah. So, look, jeepneys have evolved. We were able to ride an electric jeepney.
Yeah, there's some cool little electric ones around. They're not like the big diesel spewing ones.
No, but
cool.
jeepneys and the electric ones, they're only good, like around the city or like in between cities that share a common thoroughfare, like for example, Las Piñas, Parañaque, and then Alabang.
Yep.
So that jeepney
It's kind of hard to explain it. If you've never been to Manila and you've never been to the outer cities, the cities are sort of made up of villages.
Gated communities.
Sort of
really.
gated communities, yeah. And then each gated community has a checkpoint with a security guard holding a pump action shotgun.
Color-coded tricycles.
Yeah.
So like if I lived in BF Resort, my tricycle can't go into BF Homes, even though it's the same owner.
It's all a bit complicated.
Oh, and there's another one. So commuters now from the south have to change rides at this area called PITX, PITX. And it's called the Parañaque Integrated Terminal Exchange. PITX, which is, by the way, when you say PITX, it's like Snap.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it is. So it's
very Filipino. Very Filipino.
It's a nice enough concept, to keep big public vehicles out of Manila, especially those coming from, let's say, Tagaytay or Batangas. But that area lacks a metro line at the moment. I know there are plans to extend the light railway train thing from Baclaran Church to that area in Pasay, but it's not there yet.
Just on trains, are there actually trains that leave the city, like even, what do you call them?
Like the Bicol Express.
Ones that take, what do you call them? I can't even think of them. The cargo
the
trains. No, but the ones that take produce and whatever else.
Remember
do they go up on, because it's on Luzon, the island of Luzon. Does it go up north? Is there a train line that goes?
The Bicol Express.
Oh, right.
Remember that? Yeah. But there are trains. And they do have a train line, and it's somewhere near in the middle of Pasay and Makati. This area, that a train line.
Okay, so you can tell how popular trains are in the Philippines.
Or you can tell how long I have not been back in my country.
But going back to other forms of public transport, we spent tons of time taking them just to go to the supermarket, shopping malls and stuff like that. And just from your parents' house alone, just to give you a bit of an idea if we wanted to go to the supermarket or a mall about 5 kilometres up the road, we'd go from Melanie's parents' house
to the corner.
We'd walk, to a corner somewhere to get a trike, pick
Near
up a
the
trike,
clubhouse.
and then ride it to a jeepney stop. Then if needed, hail a bus or something else just to get anywhere. So no wonder people just drive their own cars.
Yeah, well, we could walk.
We could, well, depends on the weather probably as well.
True.
Like, it's a tropical city. So anyway, this leads on to the next point I want to talk about today, and that's health.
Health is not fun in the Philippines.
I just mentioned cars and people who have them, drive them everywhere. Mel, you said that. So you'll typically see most times of the day 4-lane highways jammed with cars.
And motorbikes.
And I've got to say, there's more motorbikes there now. And I've got to say, it's seriously having an impact on Filipinos' health. They just don't generally look healthy at all.
Sitting on those motorbikes.
I'm pretty lazy at the best of times, but spending time in Manila drags me into the same mentality as the locals where I give in and I just say, let's go by car. There doesn't seem to be any sort of nationwide campaign or public service announcements about obesity, diabetes and heart health, for example. Just commercials about Jollibee, Macca's, KFC and skin whitening creams.
Oh, yeah.
They've still got that, which is incredible. In fact, I went looking for some stats online about obesity and heart disease in the Philippines, and it was pretty difficult to find anything factual and up-to-date about it. I'm not too sure why.
Well, maybe the COVID pandemic, focused too much on COVID stats. They forgot.
Yeah, there was a fair bit about that.
Yeah.
The WHO.
The Who?
The WHO, it had very little. And even then it was dated back to 2016. But I managed to find something on the UNICEF website that says around, okay, brace yourself, Mel, 27 million Filipinos are overweight and obese.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I'm not either. Walking around the malls and stuff like that. That's about a third of the population. And that for the past 2 decades, overweight and obesity has almost doubled from 20.2% in 1998 to 36.6% in 2019.
And that's just not for adults.
Yeah, that's the entire population. And you know what? Like just going there, I would believe it.
Oh, yeah.
I would believe it. It's also doubled among adolescents from 4.9% in 2003 to 11.6% in 2018. There are plenty of fat kids in the Philippines, Mel. And what's surprising, or not, is that there's really only been recommendations to introduce guidance in determining the food and beverages that can be marketed to children and for front-of-pack labelling of food products.
Although Coca-Cola came up with like 2 new different sizes since our
visit. The national drink, just in case.
Yeah, the Sakto and the other one.
Yeah, actually that the Coke Zero one thing with no sugar or whatever is really popular.
No, but also the size.
Oh yeah,
remember
these
that little
tiny
thing? Sakto.
So you can have a little nip.
Sakto means just right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like less than 200 ml.
Yeah, it's like about 100 mil, 150 mil or something. Little pocket-sized things
exactly.
They are, little hand grenade kind of things.
But it's still Coke.
But as it stands at the moment, food manufacturers can use whatever tactics they like to target Filipino children.
And parents.
Yep, and to encourage them to eat their products. It's outrageous, really.
Look, what can I say? Filipinos, me included, we were never really educated or saw advertisements about healthy eating and exercise. I think I told you like when we were first dating, I said, I've never had like fresh milk. It's always like UHT milk. And you were telling me you were a dairy farmer and you were like drinking milk straight from the cow's tit or something like that. And I'm like, what?
I said that in confidence.
Sorry. But yeah, and the thing is poverty. Look, the poverty argument would always pop up in that healthy food, conversation. It's just too expensive to buy vegetables, onions. Oh my gosh. There was this, huge kerfuffle about onions when we were there. And how can you not go for the unli rice and
yes,
the
good
unli
point.
iced tea? And this is not like a southern iced tea in America. This is sweet, nesty iced tea.
Can you just
and it's
explain unli for a moment?
Unli is short for unlimited. So if you like say go to a carinderia or a restaurant and you would buy like one plate of adobo, you get one plate of rice. But if you want more rice, you can have unlimited rice as much as you want. And look, if you were trying to feed a family of 5 children, that's like a really good deal.
Yeah, that's right. And you just need to take a day trip and hit the highways to see all the roadside stops. And actually, you get plenty of time to see them as
In
they go by because
traffic,
you're going
yeah.
pretty slowly. All the roadside stops with Jollibee, Macca's, KFC, Wendy's and so on.
Chowking.
It's really, Chowking is everywhere. It's criminal. But I must admit though, we stopped in at one or two along the way. But in all seriousness, if as much effort and paranoia went into improving rates of obesity, heart disease and diabetes as goes into COVID-19 in the Philippines, then things would be looking up. Anyway, this might be a good jumping off point to hit the next one on our list, poverty.
AMRB's what we got.
Now, this is a really heartbreaking topic, and I don't mean to bring the vibe of this episode down any lower, but seriously, if you're contemplating visiting the Philippines, you're going to have to be prepared to be confronted by this. As I mentioned at the top of the episode, I've been to the Philippines a bunch of times, but it's probably this poverty that still gets me every time.
I think you're still protected somewhat of it because we live in a middle class gated community and there's still a gate. You know, there's still this barrier between you and the real poverty.
And there
on
are
the
people
streets.
sort of working behind the scenes
Yes.
to separate people,
Yeah.
you know. So, yeah, you're right. We don't encounter too much of this here in Vietnam, although I did when I first visited here as a backpacker about 25 years ago. But Vietnam seems to have done a pretty good job in raising its citizens out of poverty. The Philippines, on the other hand, it's a different story. It's very much in your face from the day you arrive.
And it was really extra heartbreaking this time because it was Christmas. And, you know, but maybe most Pinoy baiting vloggers don't experience it because they are just hanging around in BGC or in an exclusive Boracay or Palawan beach resort where, you know, all their expenses are being paid for. So,
And if they are documenting
Yes.
it, it's for shock value.
okay.
You know, there's a few of those videos coming through on my feed about the North Manila Cemetery,
Oh, yeah. That's
which
where
I
people live as
contemplated
well. Yeah.
doing a video at, but in the end, I decided not to because I didn't really know how to manage it.
Yeah.
I didn't want it to be this video about, oh, look at how these poor people live. I wanted it to be more sort of documentary style, but I hadn't really done the research when we went. So I kept away from that one.
But also, you know, when we did the street food video in Ugbo, Tondo, Manila, we agreed that we were going to blur the faces of the children as much as possible using the YouTube automation tool, you know, and so that was kind of like, the reality check for us about poverty.
Yep.
Doing content this time around,
The disparity between the haves and the have-nots just gets me every time. According to the World Bank in 2022, the top 1% of earners in the Philippines capture 17% of national income, while only 14% of national income is shared by the bottom 50% of the population. And you can see it. As you said, if you get out of the Pinoy beta zones like BGC, Mel, and get amongst the real Manila, like Tondo, for example, where we went to Ugbo Street for the street food videos. And in places like this is where you see the impact of over 18% of Filipinos living in poverty.
Yeah.
That's 18%. 18% of Filipinos live in poverty. I also read somewhere that 2.3 million people were pushed into poverty during the pandemic years. Now, the Philippine Statistics Authority says the threshold for falling below the poverty line was an income of 12,030 pesos per month. That's about $220 for a family of 5 people.
Look, although to be fair, the last time we were in Manila pre-COVID, there were way more informal settlers and street children begging in, on intersections than what we saw this trip. I read that up to 200,000 people living in the coastal area, near Manila Bay.
Yep.
And that, you can see it coming in.
Near the US Embassy.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
The former mayor of Manila, who lost in last year's presidential race, apparently did a good job cleaning up, Manila Bay and the coastal areas, Manila thoroughfares and tourist landmarks, and, not just shooing people away, but supporting them in relocation. And actually, during the pandemic, they did, go home to their provinces elsewhere. But right now, they're slowly coming back because there's really no jobs outside of the cities. And yeah, look, my country is in a really terrible state. Thank you to all the tourists who are coming there and vlogging about it. But if you do encounter poverty, such as what we describe, I just hope that you take, a more proactive approach on how to deal with that in your content. I mean, really, that's all I'm asking.
It's hard, isn't it? I mean, one of the really visible signs of poverty is the impoverished kids on the streets begging for food and money. You see it a lot. And I was approached quite a bit, being the Joe that I am.
They thought you were American.
Yep. And standing out like dog's balls. But, what can you do about it?
Look, I'm stopping my comments about this topic right here because otherwise I'm going to go more into religion, i.e. contraception, or the lack of information about contraception and safe family planning, and of course politics.
But what about for tourists? Let's say someone's listening to this and they're thinking about traveling to the Philippines for a short time, and they'll get approached by these young kids and people of all ages. Do you give them money? Do you give them food? It's a dilemma for many travelers. You might have some kind of conscience about it.
Look,
and especially for travelers who go off the beaten path a bit like us.
Yeah, I just don't show the faces of the children. And when they do beg, it's really up to the person. I would rather give
So you mean
food.
if they're videoing, don't show their faces? Yeah.
Don't show their faces. Don't show yourself giving them food. If you want to really give them food or money, do it off camera and just don't be a about it.
Actually, when we filmed the Ugbal Street series of videos, I was approached throughout the evening a number of times. And the approach I took in the end was kind of like what I did for any kid that they would forget after a while. I sort of said, okay, well, look, I'm kind of working right now. Yeah. Come back later. And some of them did come back throughout the night. Forgot. And then eventually we were able to sort of get out of there and leave.
Well, you were the only white person there.
I know, I didn't see any that night.
Well, here's to the memories. We wish you Americano. We wish you Americano. We wish you Americano and a happy. The original thing that comes after that, I'm not going to say. It's really politically incorrect.
So let's get into the next point, number 4, which kind of ticked me off more than it has in past trips. And that's that Filipinos seem to embrace a welfare or what you might call a handout culture. They seem to have no qualms about asking for a handout.
So is this a synonym for charity, or you don't think that it is a synonym for charity?
Well, asking for charity, I suppose. I guess it falls into that sort of realm.
All right.
I know coming from me, this sounds racist, elitist, colonialist, whatever you want.
Atheist.
Yeah, but I'm just calling it how I see it from my experience. I mean, that's just how I saw it.
It was in your face, wasn't it?
Yeah, and one example was these, what you might call riders, for lack of a better word. Adults begging for money who get into the back of jeepneys and place small red envelopes. And, obviously it was Christmas, New Year, so red envelopes are a thing. On the knees or laps of passengers in the hope that you'll take pity on them or perhaps be so overcome with guilt that you'll slip some money into the envelope. Yeah. Now, that's just a handout in my book. There's nothing commercial about it. There's nothing you receive in return for it.
Although, wait, to be fair, there was a younger gentleman who did give out, we were riding a bus from Tagaytay, and he had a note on the envelope that said, I am a college student, and then he was selling cookies, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, he was, it was almost like a business for him. Whereas the ones I'm talking about are people who will jump on with other people, the passengers.
All right.
And then while the jeepney's going along, they'll hand out these envelopes, sit them on your lap in the hope that you'll slip some money in there. And then when the jeepney stops the next time, they collect it and get off. That's it.
Okay. What's your opinion on that lady who went in the middle of the bus and then started talking, like telling us about the Bible?
Well, that was...
And then she even had a little player. She had a musical player and a microphone.
Yeah, but that wasn't really... That was... What do you call that? Soliciting?
Evangelizing?
I don't know. To give some background, we were taking a bus trip out to one of the provinces, an hour-long bus trip, and not long after we got on the bus, I realised that there was a lady standing close to the front of the bus
aisle,
and she was speaking in Filipino, of course. And then I noticed she was holding a book, and
quoting from the book.
Yeah, at first I thought she was a tour guide because there seemed to be people sort of looking up and listening and taking notice.
And the bus driver actually put down the volume of the TV. Yeah. So I thought it was like,
So I said to Mel, after a while, I'm like, hang on, what's going on here? Is she...
She's preaching.
Preaching, out of the Bible. And she goes, and Mel said, you said, yeah, that's what's going on. Anyway, this went on for about another 15, 20 minutes or so. And she also had a little, like you said, a little...
transistor.
Yeah, like a transistor radio that was slung around her shoulder and hung down on a hip, playing sort of churchy kind of music.
While she went around with an envelope.
And then, she went around handing out envelopes, hoping that people would give her money.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Which of the three examples would you give a handout to? The lady preaching, the college student selling cookies to help for his university, or the guy in the jeepney that just went in and didn't say anything?
The college student for sure, but there was probably no way for me to verify that. I don't know if he was telling the truth, but he was doing...
He should have shown his ID.
Yeah, he probably did. Yeah. I don't know. I was pretty sleepy at that time, I must admit.
So you are amenable to the handout culture with particular requirements, such as a ID, school
That's
ID.
It. There's so many different levels of it, isn't there? So it's constant. Anyway, for travellers who are thinking about going there, be prepared for all this sort of stuff, unless you're someone who just doesn't give a damn. But it's a privilege to be able to travel, and that realisation is even more so when you visit places like Manila. Now, I'm coming from an extremely privileged position to be able to do what I do.
Not necessarily the bank account.
I'm not going to say I'm not. But you know what? You need to draw the line somewhere. Okay. Like what we've just talked about. And sometimes you just have to say no when these things happen.
Well, I think I said no to a lot of the kids ringing our doorbell this time around.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the other thing. Maybe that's a cultural thing you want to just mention quickly.
No, because I just felt that, when I was a kid, I didn't just ring people's bells and went namamas ko po. Me and my friends, we actually made an effort. We sang Christmas carols. We pounded bottle cap, covers and made our own little tambourine.
Well, you didn't really have technology way back then.
No.
But Namama Skupo is basically Merry Christmas, isn't it?
Yeah.
Merry Christmas. Mm-hmm. Pa is like a respectful term that you give to another person.
Yeah, pa.
Yeah. And so, they come around and they start singing Christmas carols and they want you to give them some money. Okay, so let's move into our final point for this episode, and it's on the topic of safety. Mel, you've got some first-hand experience in Manila that you'd like to share about safety.
Okay, so about 7 years ago, me, my brother, and my sister-in-law, we ate at this posh restaurant in Alabang, which is a posh village, an area.
Well, it wasn't on the street.
No, there wasn't.
It was a regular sort of restaurant. It wasn't a fine dining establishment.
It was, I think, Japanese food.
Yeah, it was a Japanese place or something.
But
like
anyway, I got my bag, my wallet, a new pair of eyeglasses, sunglasses, nicked. Just there, inside.
Literally right under our noses.
Yes, because I was stupid.
Well, there was a glass wall that.
But we were still eating inside.
The glass wall of the restaurant butted up against the table on the booth.
It was
sort
a booth,
of tables,
yeah.
And so people walking past on the outside could see in and see under the tables and see if people had things beneath their seats.
There was a booth behind us and in front of us. And the CCTV camera after the fact showed that lady just...
They'd noticed
took
that
my
your
bag
bag was under the seat and they came in under the guise of dining at the restaurant. Yeah, Well, I don't know. I still don't know whether she was pregnant or not. Maybe that was part of it so that they could stuff the bag up under her dress. You would think that you'd be pretty safe in a place like that, but we still managed to get robbed.
But I guess it's extremes. Like you eat at this restaurant in a posh village, but then you get robbed. But at the same time, you go, to any Jollibee and the security guard has like a really long shotgun.
Yeah, you're going to be pretty unlucky if you get robbed at a Jollibee because the doorman is a security guard with a pump-action shotgun.
Yeah.
Or a pistol.
Yeah.
So even at a Jollibee. But, going to shopping malls, for example.
Well, COVID safety, could that also be part of it?
Yeah.
Like on the other extreme?
I think there's a bit of paranoia in the Philippines about COVID. But your brother was telling me that the Philippines still doesn't have a 100% vaccine rate at the moment. Not everyone's had the double shot. So allegedly Manila's fine, but a lot of of course, as I mentioned at the beginning, how many islands? 7,000 whatever islands there are in the Philippines. So it would be a fairly tough job rolling out a vaccine program, I suppose. So they're very paranoid about it.
When we made our reservations at the Villa Escudero, my brother had to give me the COVID certificates of my nieces to show at the door.
Yep.
Also,
in terms of security, banks, of course. Now, it was, I'm used to this now, so it's not that shocking. I can remember the first time I went to the Philippines and we went straight up to Baguio and Vigan.
Yeah.
We went to Vigan and there was a night market there. And, there were these big Rambo knives for sale at this family-friendly night market.
But across the street.
And then across the street was a bank and then a security guard holding...
an AK.
Yeah, I think it was an AK-47 or something like that. And that's when I went, but, just at the local bank that you went to last trip, there's a sign there. There's usually a couple of security guards there and there was a sign that said, hand your weapons in at the door. And a picture of a gun with a red line through it.
Welcome to Texas.
And this is just down at your friendly local mall. But look, by and large, it's pretty safe for travellers, I got to say. And
stick to BGC travel vloggers.
Well, if you're worried about all that sort of stuff, and perhaps if you don't have that much time when you visit the Philippines and you're only in Manila
this trip
for a short time.
This trip, I didn't take you to Chinatown, Quiapo, and Divisoria, but we went there the last time we were there.
Yeah,
Binondo. And you were like scared.
No, what?
Yeah, it was like 9 o'clock.
That's not in the script.
Yeah.
Oh no, that was
Chinatown, Escolta, Quiapo.
Around Escolta and Loton.
Yeah.
Loton. That's a different story. I forgot about that. But generally in cities like Las Piñas and Cavite, pretty good, although there is a vibe. There is a vibe. And when we came back from that trip out of town and it was nighttime and
in Zapote.
there's no lighting. The streets are dark and all that. And it's a vibe,
There's a light at the barbecue.
It's an edgy vibe that you don't really get here in Ho Chi Minh City. There might be some districts in Ho Chi Minh City, maybe around District 8, not too far from where we are, if you were there in the evening with no light. But look, I don't really feel threatened generally. I'm white, fairly big compared to Pinoys. So I don't know, maybe I'm not that much of a target for that sort of thing. There are still some shakedowns on the streets. You know, some of the traffic cops still want you to cough up when you break the traffic law.
And we're not speaking from experience.
No, somebody told me. Somebody told me.
A friend of ours.
Yeah, and security services I felt like this time, you know, the security guys between the villages.
They had a box.
Yeah, but I think the thing that got me was that they were giving us the impression that they're serving us and making sure that we're fine. But at the end of the day, it leads to a shakedown.
Oh,
you know, they want some cash.
Christmas money.
Yeah, so there's that underlying thing constantly in Manila where every action, you know, deserves or is requiring some kind of payment. That's what keeps the whole machine running.
That's what keeps people safe.
Well, that's it for this episode. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a like, share and comment, and feel free to ask any questions about travel to the Philippines on the Bureau Asia's social media channels at the Bureau Asia, and I'll do my best to answer them. Mal, as usual, thanks for joining me, and I might see you in the next one when I plan to compare that is Manila with Ho Chi Minh City, which should be a good one.
All right. Yes. See you then.
So don't forget to check out my YouTube channel. Just search The Bureau Asia and something should come up. Give it a watch and subscribe. I'm on a mission to hit 1,000 subscribers as soon as possible. So please help me with that mission. I think I'm on 541. Not that I'm counting. Anyway, until next episode, take care and stay safe. This is Matt Cowan. Mabuhay.